All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Plenty to talk about. I wanted to start with Arena Sabalenka, but apparently people want to hear about National Football League. So we're going to talk about the games from the weekend, look ahead to the openers for conference title weekend on Sunday, and then we'll close off with a bit of Australian Open chat.
Yeah.
But let's start off with Bengals-Bills, which I think is certainly the most surprising result of the weekend. Bengals 27, Bills 10. Line closed, Bills -6. Total was 48.5. Bengals obviously run away with that, and the total sails under in the snow. What did you make of it, Drew?
Well, the total betting obviously had me more interested. The side betting was kind of surprising too. Bills took one-way action with the market all week long. That pushed out to 6 at one point, which I did not ever think we were going to get, but sure enough, it showed 6. And then, ultimately the story was the Buffalo defense just came out with a bad plan A. And like always, if plan A does not work for the Buffalo Bills defense, they don't seem to have a plan B. And so Bengals pretty much got whatever they wanted going. And then, with the lead in those conditions, all of a sudden you can really put the ball in the hands of your big back and take some of the pressure off of the B team that was out there for the O-line. And that was sort of the game. Somewhat, I guess, from the total side of things, it was weird all week that did not come crashing down, particularly as the weather looked to deteriorate. And even as we were seeing sort of in the early stages of the game, there was some fluky stuff. It felt like that was an under all the way. And yes, the Bengals did get whatever they wanted on offense. And maybe the people who bet the over thought, well, if the Bengals get going offensively, then this is going to be a score and answer shootout like the Miami Dolphins Bills game. It was not, however, as the Bills really, really, really struggled to find game-breaking plays. I was disappointed that they didn't use more designed runs for Josh Allen. I felt like that was their bread and butter through the first half of the season, and they kind of put it in their back pocket, and I guess they forgot about it, or teams just adjusted to it well enough that they didn't think those plays were there, so they didn't really try. But there were opportunities, I felt like, for that to be a successful strategy in this particular game, and but it ended up just being Josh Allen trying to do too much hero ball and, a lot of drops from his wide receivers and just in general, a lot of sloppy offense from the Bills. And I guess, considering the way that they've played over the last month and a half now, I don't think we should be surprised. But sure enough, rematch in the AFC Championship game from last year. And I don't think people are going to be disappointed with that.
Yeah, it was a weird game. I think just all of the concerns you would have about the Bills, about losing Von Miller and Micah Hyde on defense, about Damar Hamlin being out as well and just being down to 4th and then 5th string safeties. And it just all reared its head. The fact that the offense just devolves into Josh Allen's Superman stuff over and over again. And then you contrast that to the Bengals, who clearly came out with a plan. The fact that, they were using the short stuff, and also just their ability to run the ball was surprising. The fact that Joe Mixon, who has been able to do nothing for a while, the fact that he was able to go 20 for 105, even when the Bills knew that they would be running the ball in the second half, that was weird. Just a weird game across the board. And now the Bengals are almost picked to make the Super Bowl, which we'll get into. Let's talk about Chiefs-Jags. Chiefs 27-20. They close close to -10 and almost covered. But Doug Peterson, unfortunately for Chiefs backers, fortunately for Jags backers, decides to kick the field goal late to cut it to a 1-score game and go for the onside kick. The total's 51.5. It goes under. Obviously, the story is Patrick Mahomes and his ankle and what he will look like and whether he'll look better or worse. I suspect that he's probably going to look slightly worse, but I think the offense will look a little bit better just with the amount of time that they have to scheme around that. I don't know what they were doing, calling like stretch runs when Mahomes can't walk, but it was another very strange, uneven game. I'm not sure there's too much to read into it given the health, but what did you make of Jags Chiefs?
It was there for the taking for the Jags. I don't know what else to say. It was there for the taking. And the Agnew, the sequence, the drive, the entire drive that started with Agnew should have taken that kickoff to the house. And then ultimately he fumbles it inside the 10. Was like, oh my God, how is this happening? And even when the fumble happened live, I was like, that's that's coming back. There's no way that was actually controlled and fumbled, was it? Nope, sure enough, like that was a fumble. And the Jags get a nice stop. They get another opportunity, and Trevor Lawrence throws the pick, and then that's basically the game. It felt like all of the recipe was there for a comeback for the Jags, and they just couldn't put it together. They got the break they needed with Mahomes taking that injury in the first half, and they still couldn't exercise the miracle upset. But so season's over for the Jags, and the market seems to be, we can talk about this more, but the market seems to be pricing in Mahomes being either 50-50 unavailable or just not anywhere close to the same player we've seen from him from his entire career, because this this opener kind of in the pick'em range against the Bengals is like so far off of market. It's very, very tough for me to wrap my head around. Now, I didn't think Mahomes was that bad in, particularly coming out of halftime. I thought he was pretty effective, and your point of they can scheme around the limitations he's going to have. I think that's true. They have the best offensive line in the AFC, the second best in football after the Eagles. This is a team that's going up against a Bengals squad that likes to generate pressure with as few rushers as possible. I don't think that they're going to put a ton of pressure on Mahomes. And literally, if Mahomes' arm, absolutely electric still. It is just fine. If he's not on a stable platform, if he's having trouble, planting his feet, I don't really know that matters for him because his arm is so freaking strong. He should be able to carve this team, even with some limitations of his mobility in the pocket and just in general, kind of gaining anything on the ground. So, as we sit here now with zero information, I would guess Mahomes plays. I'm going to guess he's limited to the pocket, and I'm going to guess he carves the Bengals. And I'm surprised that this market is giving you such a low price on a Chiefs team that's hosting the AFC Championship game for the millionth year in a row.
I don't understand the line at all. And I think the way to think about it is the Bills was close 6-point favorites at home against the Bengals. The Chiefs and the healthy Chiefs are rated about the same as the Bills, give or take a point either side. And just so how do you get from -6 down to -1? And look, there's obviously Mahomes' health, which is worth some amount, which is difficult to quantify. And then the Bengals rating obviously has to go up after yesterday. But I don't think that those two things add up to 5 points. And I don't really understand. I don't think Tony Romo is moving global markets, but after what he said at the end of that game about Mahomes' ankle sprain and how he's not going to be able to walk today, my inbox started lighting up with, are the Bengals just going to destroy them? Like, I don't think so. I think also as well, the Bengals offensive line, which looked magnificent against Buffalo. I mean, I think the snow definitely mitigates pass rush a little bit. Now, look, it's forecast to be snowing in Kansas City on Sunday at the moment, so maybe they'll get the same benefit there. But I don't think the offensive line is going to look that good again. And I can't find a way to bridge the 5 points between Bills -6 and Kansas City -1. Obviously, it has to be bridged somewhat, but I thought this line was going to be 3. And for it to be 1 is very surprising. The total is 47.5. Any lean there?
I guess I would lean under just because I feel like the Chiefs defense, particularly Chris Jones, is going to be a nightmare matchup for the Bengals in this one. I think the fact that the offensive line played up was in large part, you can attribute that to the fact that the Bills pass rush was not on yesterday. And the conditions absolutely helped them because the minute the game script flipped from, hey, we need to give Joe Burrow time to get his guy open, let his guys get open down the field so we can, hit some chunk plays. The minute that script flipped to, hey, we just need to get off the snap count correctly and then try to just push these guys, on their back heel on a slippery surface. Well, that's a much easier ask. And so the game state broke perfectly so that weakness was not exposed. And people seem to have forgotten that this is not a very good unit. I I would expect that the Chiefs D line, which is healthy and very, very, very violent, is going to have a lot to say about how this game plays out. And so, if for whatever reason, Chiefs are a little limited offensively because Mahomes is not mobile, and or if Mahomes just can't go, and this is the Chad Henne show, then 47.5 feels like a very fair play to the under. So I think it's under or pass here at 47.5. 47 is obviously an important number in the football space. So this is a surprising side and total. You said it. You kind of like, how do we go from Buffalo -6 to Chiefs -1? How do we go from Chiefs -7 last year to Chiefs -1 this year? How do we go from Chiefs -2.5 in Cincinnati on December 4th to Chiefs -1 at home? I mean, like this price speaks to someone having like realistic uncertainty that Mahomes is even going to play. And I'm not there. I think he's going to play through it. We're kind of living in the era now of quarterbacks calling their number. And so even if the medical staff is like, we don't feel great about this, he could re-injure it, this could be career impacting, I think he's probably going anyway. And I think with his arm kind of being the thing you fear the most, that's not a good thing for Kansas City and for Cincinnati. I mean, try to defend that.
Yeah. And I think the extra day break will help a little bit, given Mahomes and the Chiefs, they played on the Saturday. Now they get the Sunday game. The Bengals have just flipped favorite some places in the market, which is incredible. So, yeah, my thought on the -3 opener is obviously way off, but I can't imagine that the Bengals, and that's probably baking in some chance that it is Chad Henne, but there's just no way that the Bengals can be favored in Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes if he does suit up. And I would think it's a heavy favorite that he is going to play after the 8-day break. Though, maybe it's something else wrong.
The limits are still a little low compared to what they're going to be later this week. This could be a dummy move. In no universe am I going to have Cincinnati this week at these prices. No way. Like this, at this current moment, I only think you're going to get, action towards Kansas City unless the impossible of Chad Henne being the guy becomes the reality. But man, this looks like a rope-a-dope, kind of like we've seen with a couple of things in the playoffs so far.
Yeah. My best guess now, just seeing how the market has moved, I would still guess that it's going to close Kansas City -1.5, -2 maybe. It's not going to get to the 3 that I thought it would be, but certainly want to monitor. But yeah, I would be betting Kansas City. All right, before we get to the NFC, a reminder to download the Roto World app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. Okay, NFC. I think these two games went mostly to form, certainly relative to the chaos in the AFC. I'll start off with 49ers Cowboys, which is the most interesting game. I'm never going to forgive Dak Prescott for not getting my +4.5 home that I backed as the opener. He was horrific. The Cowboys defense played a lot better than I expected. I like the over in this game, and it didn't even come close. The 49ers, I thought Brock Purdy did not look great, but at the same time was good enough down the stretch to convert on what seemed like, as a Cowboys better, it seemed like 15 plays in a row of just slants on 3rd and 2 that which is wide open every time, which was infuriating. Mike McCarthy making some very strange decisions down the stretch. Didn't agree with the punt on 4th and 5. Didn't agree with Dak Prescott trying to throw the game-ending pick on one game-saving drive, and then the next game-saving drive tries to take the game-ending safety. Didn't like that either. Just a catastrophe late game execution from the Cowboys. Shades of how they played against the 49ers down the stretch last year in the playoffs. So just a catastrophe all around for Cowboys +4.5. And the Niners, I mean, their rating has to go down after that game, even though they covered. And I think that's reflected in the fact that they're trending towards 3-point dogs against Philadelphia, when I think if we were doing this podcast last week and projecting what the line would be there, we would have said pick Philly Philly -1. The market loves San Francisco.
Yeah, I know. But if the minute you got confirmation that Hurts was fine, the dynamic changed. I don't know. I think a pick 'em would have been like, is Hurts right? Like that's sort of the number you see. I think.
I mean, the Niners going into the playoffs, the Niners were like favorite for the NFC some places, having to play an extra game than Philadelphia. I mean, the market just loves San Francisco, but I think after what Purdy in particular showed yesterday, where that guy just does not give up on plays. He will just run around, literally in circles sometimes before he throws it away. So I think that to me is the big thing out of yesterday, that the Purdy might be a little overmatched going into Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think playoff environment on the road is going to be an interesting test. And I know I sound like a broken record. Let's see him against a good pass defense now. Let's see him against a pass rush finally. Let's see him in a playoff environment. Let's see him in like he's passed every test to this point. They've gotten increasingly hard. This is the toughest test. You're going up against a team that is healthy and dangerous in every aspect of the game, and you're doing it on the road in a very high energy environment. Philadelphia, never a fun place to play, particularly in a game of this magnitude. So it's going to be tough for him, surely. The noise, the communication, the idea that the plays that he's scrambling around trying to make a miracle happen don't turn into turnovers. All like that, like the regression from him, particularly creating turnover worthy plays and that are actually converted into turnovers, is wildly overdue. If it all happens in one game on the road at Philadelphia, will any of us be surprised? I don't think so. This fair price to me was Philadelphia -3, and it's a large part because of what we saw from Philadelphia more so than what we saw from the Niners. I think the Niners are exactly who they look to be. It's a team that, creates chaotic plays on defense with their pass rush, has the ability to take the ball away, particularly if you throw it kind of anywhere close to their guys who can make a play. But at the same time, because of their aggressive nature, they give up plays in chunks. If you can block well, if you can give your quarterback time and let your wide receivers and tight ends win 1v1 down the field, you're going to move the ball in chunks against this defense. And we've seen a lot of teams be able to do that. So, on the offensive side, the Niners have an embarrassment of riches. I feel like they didn't even really have to press the Deebo Samuel button yesterday. They kind of got to put him on ice a little bit for this game. And it was mostly just like, hey, let Kittle win his matchups and let him be the guy today. CMC obviously dealing with the calf and some tendonitis, it looks like, but I would expect he goes. But in his absence, Mitchell looked he looked fast. He looked very, very effective. So, Niners skill position players are going to be there. They're going to do their jobs. It's just a matter of, can Purdy avoid the turnover? And particularly in this environment, with this magnitude of intensity, expecting him to give you exactly the same poison and ability to avoid the backbreaker that's a tough ask. So I think market's trending towards 3 for Philly. I think that's a fair price. I think if you can get a flat 2.5, that's a decent bet now, particularly as this gets more widely available, bigger limits. I think this moves to 3.
Yeah, I think if it does close 3, I might even like San Francisco at that point. I do think that this is it's a bad matchup for Philadelphia's offense in that, they want to run the ball, and when they go up against the dreadful rushing defense like the Giants, and they look all world on offense. Now they go up against the best rushing defense in the league, and this game is largely going to be on Jalen Hurts' shoulder, literally and figuratively, where he's going to have to throw. He's almost certainly going to have to throw more than the 24 times he threw against the Giants. And look, he's definitely the better quarterback in this matchup, even with the health concern. But this is going to be much tougher sledding, obviously, for the Eagles. I would just be, if I were on the Niners, I would be concerned that that defensive line of the Eagles, now that it's fully healthy, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Robert Quinn is even getting run, Fletcher Cox, all of these guys, Hassan Reddick, who's probably the best of all of them. Like, they are going to be in Purdy's face, and it's not so much necessarily interceptions. I just feel like this is a recipe for Brock Purdy to take 6 sacks because he loves to hold on to the ball. So that would be the concern there. And I think if you believe in the Eagles, it's more about their defense than what they're going to do offensively. So yeah, I think 2.5 is right. And it looks like we're headed for the Eagles in the Super Bowl after all of that, after all the concerns about their health, about Jalen Hurts, about Lane Johnson, who was wincing all throughout the game, got through it okay. We'll see what happens with Levante Maddox, but they're largely healthy. And this was, I mean, they've been the best team in the NFC all year.
Yep. You have this. I mean, we got a rematch in the AFC, and you're 1 and 2 seeds who are rightfully here in the NFC. So, this is it should be a good championship weekend. Obviously, the fact that you have 2 narrow line games is pretty unique. Usually 1 or 2 games, there's a little bit of a tilt in the market. These are 2 very, very, these are expected to be very competitive games. So, should be a fun week preparing for this. Got to rewatch a lot of Cincinnati, Kansas City tape. One of the things that's kind of bugging me, and we'll get to this, but I still haven't figured out what happened in last year's AFC Championship game. Like that one still puzzles me, and I think that's an important piece to figuring out. But certainly for the NFC, I think the Eagles are the right side. I am starting to get a lot of heat from Niners fans, by the way, and that's kind of bringing out sort of the worst part of as you matriculate through the playoffs. Like, we're just calling balls and strikes in terms of the market here, guys. Like, I don't hate your team just because I think the Niners are a little bit overrated. I'm betting against them, or I'm looking for opportunities to capture value on the other side. That's just the way it is. And I lost on the Niners Cowboys game because I bet the over, not because I bet against the Niners. I thought the Niners offense was going to be a lot more effective than they were. 19 points I thought was a little bit of an underachievement from them. But Dak Prescott really threw me out of that game. So that's where I sort of landed there. I don't know. Eagles Giants was sort of a forgettable Saturday night game just because it was so lopsided. But that was kind of the only heavy duty stakes I had all weekend. So maybe the last kind of heavy duty stakes I bet in the NFL all season. So this is sort of where we are in the arc of things. And if you kind of head into AFC NFC Championship weekend thinking you have an enormous edge on the market, you're probably wrong. So I'm kind of I'm going to be treading a little bit lightly, I think.
Indeed. All right. Well, those are the appetizers done. Let's get to the main course of the Australian Open women's side. But before we do, a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen on the PGA Tour, as well as in college basketball and the NFL, including a shot at $100,000 on Championship Sunday if you enter our Sunday Night 7 contest. All right. Australian Open quarterfinals. I didn't enjoy what Dak Prescott was doing last night, but I did enjoy what Arina Sabalenka was doing at the same time. A little 2-screen action, and was diverting my eyes from Dak, looking at Arina just light up and just break Belinda Bencic. Sabalenka, that was a real test. Bencic flipped favorite. I think she was trading at like minus 150, minus 180 live when she had the break in the first set. And then Sabalenka turned it on. And the thing with Sabalenka, which I think makes her so unique, is that she has so much power on her ground strokes that she just hits the ball back to the mid-court. And her opponent doesn't really have to move, but is shaken off balance by just the amount of power, the amount of depth. And I think that if she is playing like this, she's close to unbeatable. It's just a concern that at any point, the double faults might come back. The second serve issues might come back. But to her credit, I mean, in that last set, the second set, she was love 30 down. It looked like Bencic might break back. And Sabalenka had key second serves she had to make. And she made them, and she went for them, and she got them. And she right now looks like the best player in the world. And she's got a favorable draw as well, with Caroline Garcia getting knocked out, with Ons Jabeur getting knocked out of the bottom half. And it seems like her tournament to lose, Drew.
It did. It does. And yesterday did feel like, even as she was at a deficit early, the match was always on her racket. It was like, Bencic had the lead because Sabalenka was making some unforced errors, had some double faults, really just looked to be overthinking things. And then the minute she settled down, it was just like winner, 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 winner. And it was a glorious thing to watch. Did you know you can get a sense of a player's form by looking at sort of the ratio of winners to unforced errors? In the second set, she had 14 winners, 5 unforced errors. She is seeing the court so well right now. It's even more than the power, her placement and her depth, as you mentioned, it's just unstoppable. And I am excited to see it because we've been waiting for this, for her to break out at the slam level for what feels like 5 years. I mean, it's a little bit tongue in cheek. She's really only been on the scene for like 3 or 4 years, but it's been the tools have always been there. It's just always been the mental side of, can you handle the pressure of, actually winning a slam? Because that changes sort of your career arc if you have that, if you're kind of on that level. And it seems like she is operating with the coolness and an intensity right now that is finally what you were hoping to see from her. So she is the rightful favorite in the market right now at 2-1. I would make her meaningful favorite. She is a meaningful favorite over Donna Vekic. I think fair is in the minus 400 to minus 500 ballpark. And then as we get into the later stages here, I would make her minus 450 over Pliskova, just because I rate Pliskova a lot lower than market right now. And then in the final, your worst case scenario is probably Elena Rybakina, just because Rybakina has won a slam in being the Wimbledon champion, which still pains me to say it out loud. But Rybakina won Wimbledon, of course, last year. And so she'll have a little bit of maybe a hair of a mental advantage if she ends up as your other finalist in the women's side. So that's kind of what I'm fearing right now as a backer of Aryna Sabalenka. And, I would say, however, of the bottom half of the draw right now, a lot weaker than the top. So Sabalenka has that going for her, much more likely to reach the final than any of the 4 women in the top, because that's going to be 2 very close semifinal matches, and then 2 close quarterfinal matches, and then a very, very competitive semifinal there. So Sabalenka just needs to keep her time on court low, take care of business convincingly here in these next 2 rounds, and then I think she's a meaningful favorite in the final.
Yeah, I think, and we were talking about this before we started, but I think the market will be more bullish on Pliskova in that semi. But at the same time, like right now, you can get minus 125 type of prices for Sabalenka to reach the final. And if you think that it's minus 500 against Vekic and then minus 450 fair, then you're talking about, minus 200 range.
Yeah.
So that would seem to be the bet. Rybakina is definitely scary, and when she's playing the way she did against Swiatek, she's almost unplayable. At the same time, Sabalenka's unplayable right now, so someone has to get played. And I just think that the bet is still Sabalenka. There's not much meat on the bone left at 2-1 to win it all. I think to reach the final price is probably better, just because I think she'll, at this playing like this, if she wins her next 2 matches, I think she will go off favorite against Rybakina or Pegula, but she's not going to be minus 200 against those girls. And I think it'll be minus 125, minus 130 type of range, given that they will obviously have played well to reach the final 2. But yeah, it's all there for her. So I'm looking forward to the double faults coming back when she's up 6-4-3 loving and heart's broken.
Yeah, she's not playing the great Iga Swiatek on a court speed that favors Iga. So there we have that going for us. Like I said, like the thing you're fearing at this point is someone with the kind of the mental advantage over her in a final spot, and the only narrow example of that would be Rybakina. Rybakina is she's a robot, man. Like no emotion. Like she's just it is wild to see. And I would expect that Rybakina is definitely sort of the only other player that I would give meaningful chance to win this title.
Yeah, I like that you've switched up from Rybakina to Rybakina, even though we have no proof on what is the correct pronunciation.
After our kind of butcher job last week, I went to the WTA website, and on everybody's player profile of all the top players, they have the player saying their name out loud. And what's funny about Rybakina is that she says her name twice, and it's different the 2 times she is saying it herself. Like I hear it do 2 different ways. Neither way is Rybakina, but she says like Rybakina and Rybakina. So it's still a mystery. Either way, I think I think she's obviously a really impressive win over Iga Swiatek. That was quite cool.
I think Rybakina is a purple drink that kids devour at school recess. Anyway, we have a viewer question around an exacta. Back in the day, Sab Rybakina exacta final prop. I think at this point, when it gets this deep in the tournament, you're probably just betting off money lines, match by match. Particularly, there might be an angle if Sabalenka, if she does open in the market, minus 160, minus 180 against Pliskova in particular, then just betting that, parlayed into other stuff is probably going to be a better price than an exacta, where there's just going to be more margin built into that market versus a Grand Slam semifinal head to head, which is 3-4% book. So you're probably better off just backing the money lines.
Yeah. The only reason it would make sense to get involved in the exacta prop is if you think that Vika Azarenka comes away with the upset, and then all of a sudden Rybakina is minus 300 instead of Pick'em, right? Because if you're backing that, you literally are just expecting that the other quarterfinal could go the way of the dog. At which point, just try to find another way to capitalize on that if you think that. Because Sabalenka, if it's Sabalenka, Linette, and Rybakina versus Azarenka, then all of a sudden you've got a huge amount of liquidity and equity built up in your position there. Otherwise, but if that's happening, you're going to be able to get a bigger bet on the dog prices for those 2 gals, Linette and Azarenka.
Yep. Okay, let's quickly talk men's side now. Drew, I had a lot of Holger Rune at 40-1, 50-1 to win this tournament. He was 8-1, 9-1 range going into last night. So I didn't watch the match. I went to sleep because it was in the middle of the night. And then I woke up when my 5-year-old daughter came in at 6 a.m., woke me up, and I read in a haze this text message from a friend who's also on Rune. And the text goes, "Truly sickening stuff in the Rune match. 5-2 up in the 5th, serves for it. 2 match points in following game, goes 5-0 up in tiebreaker, collapses, gets back to 9-9, loses on a dead net cord return." I'm like, this is a joke. That can't have actually happened. And it happened. And that's the way he went out to Andre Rublev. Just an incredible confluence of events. And now it's just setting up where Novak Djokovic just looks like he's going to walk in this tournament, and he's minus 250 on points bet. So I'm not sure there's as much to discuss on the men's side.
Here's what I think, man. Holger Rune, he was the second best player I saw in Australia.
Yeah.
After Djokovic.
Yeah.
And I think the name of the game now is to hope that he kind of has a little bit of a lackluster spring. Doesn't really make any noise. People kind of forget about him a little bit because Holger Rune is winning the US Open. That is the play. Find that market. Watch that price and try to pounce on it when it drifts out of range. And I mean, honestly, I would probably take Rune to win the US Open as low as plus 750-ish. And that seems crazy for a guy who's never won a slam to be interested in that kind of a price. But the court speed is perfect for him. He looks like he's made some improvements in his game. He's made some physical improvements in the offseason to a degree. I think he's going to be untouchable this fall. And really, the way that the calendar breaks, he should be kind of peaking at that point. Not all that different from what we saw from him last year. So US Open for Rune. The Australian Open is done. This is a done deal. Novak Djokovic is by far and away the best player. He was, in my opinion, bluffing with the hamstring stuff. I think he liked the way that Nadal got covered last year in winning the Australian Open surprisingly, playing through injury, and winning the French Open playing through injury, and making it to the semifinal stages of Wimbledon playing through injury. Like, I feel like he was like, I want to be covered that way too. And so he's sort of leaning into how serious this is, because you watch him play, and other than a couple of small moments where it looks like maybe he's a little limited by the hammy, he looks absolutely unbelievable. He's got the clear mental advantage over everybody else in this field. Going to be a tough time for Tsitsipas to manifest any kind of realistic challenge, considering what Tsitsipas went through in the French Open final a couple of years ago against Djokovic. That's always going to kind of be in the back of his head, even if he is playing amazingly well on the day of the final. So at this point, it's probably going to be Tsitsipas Djokovic, and Djokovic wins the final 3-1. That would be my read.
Yeah, I think Tsitsipas, who's been very impressive, and the way he closed out the Sinner match was impressive, but also like he was desperate to give away that match against Sinner, where he started for some reason it took Sinner 2.5 sets to realize that maybe he should hit it to Steph's backhand, and then as soon as he started doing that, he had complete control of the match, and then just he melted, and he won the melt off against Tsitsipas. But yeah, Tsitsipas isn't scary if you're on Djokovic. And I'm going to go to my grave thinking that the second and third best players in this tournament were Holger and Jannik Sinner. And
I think that's true.
And neither of them even made the quarterfinal, which just seems absurd, but that's just how it's broken. And look, I will sleep easier with the Holger ticket, knowing that if he's going to do that against Andrei Rublev and need to go that deep into that match and blow that many opportunities, then he probably wasn't going to touch Novak Djokovic.
That's fair.
So I think, it's Djokovic should walk this in unless the hamstring suddenly becomes real, which, to your point, I don't think it will be. And we just watch Aryna Sabalenka instead at this rate, and we gear up for the next men's event. But I think that's where it is at the moment. All right. We're done. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll be back tomorrow.